So I also want to talk a little bit about Parashat Shavua, Parashat Vayikra. We're starting a new Chumash this week, and it brings an interesting question about equality. Now, I know in America, in all sorts of different circles, they're talking a lot about equality. What does it mean? Should men and women be equal? Should races be equal? And the question is, okay, well, what does Judaism say? I love, like, what does Judaism say about that? Like, it's always such a simple answer. Like, everything's written. What does Judaism say? So, what we're gonna see is that there's not equality in Judaism. There's big differences between different classes of people. But, unlike the Goyim, that say, for example, take a king. A king of the Goyim, he is the law. He makes the law, he enforces the law, and he's above the law. So we can say it's illegal to steal. But I'm the king, so I'm allowed to steal. We're going to call it taxes. I'm the king, it's illegal to have more than one wife, but I can have as many wives as I want. He's above the law, he can do whatever he wants. But in Judaism, it's the opposite. Judaism, the higher you go in power, the more responsibility you take on. So, for example, and you actually have more restrictions. So, for example, according to the Torah, a Jewish man can have as many wives as he wants. Take 100. I don't think only Oriel could handle 100. But a king is maxed out at 18, just 18. So, why do I say that? Why is it the king has more rules on it? Why is it the exact opposite of the Goyim? This is a king. He should be able to do what he wants. He's above the law. The king is not just binded by the law, but he has extra laws that apply to him. And so, when the king is going, the higher you go up, what happens? You have responsibility. And we see that in our parasha. That there's 4 different groups of people that are separated out in the parasha. That it says that if someone does a sin, they have to bring a sacrifice. And if they're the Kohen Gadol, they have a special sacrifice. And if it's all of Am Yisrael together sinning, well, it's the Gedolei Ador, it's the big Rabbanim. They have to bring the sacrifice. Because they were supposed to teach Torah so that people wouldn't come to do sins. They were supposed to do the work to make sure that people knew that something was, forbidden or forbidden. Forbidden or permitted. Then you have the Nisim, the princes of every tribe, the leaders of every tribe. They have their own set of sacrifice. Why? Because you're a leader. You have extra responsibility. You have more responsibility than everyone else. And last is the regular Jew. And he has the most simple sacrifice to bring. So what do we see from this? That while Judaism doesn't say that there is equality, the pyramid is flipped on its head. So it's not that the higher you go, you're more special, you have more power, you can do whatever you want. It's completely opposite. You have more weight on your shoulders. You have more responsibility on your shoulders. You have more people that you have to take care of. And the consequences are much bigger. And the consequences are even bigger in the Torah. And we see that even today. That someone who was born in Yerushalayim is not the same person who was born in New York. It's not the same person that was born in Birmingham, Alabama. Because you can't say that the person who's violating Shabbat in Birmingham, Alabama is going to get the same punishment as the person who's violating Shabbat in Jerusalem. Because he doesn't know what Shabbat is. The guy in Jerusalem knows what Shabbat is. So of course, he has more responsibility. Now, it doesn't mean that the guy in Alabama goes off scot-free, doesn't have any problems. Shabbat...
If she was in Brooklyn, probably would have been more...
Shabbat is the most important mitzvah in the Torah. It's mentioned so many times, and we see it in these parashiyot. You see it connected with everything. That the Shabbat is connected to the Mikdash. Why? Because you can build the Mikdash every day, except for on Shabbat. Shabbat, you say, "Oh, this is the Mishkan, this is the Mikdash, this is for Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm doing everything in the Shem Shemayim." On Shabbat, we stop. You can say, kavod avoim, honoring your parents, always connected to the Shabbat. Everywhere where kavod avoim is brought, Shabbat is also brought. What's the connection between them? That you have to respect your father until he tells you to do something that's against the Torah. And how do I know that it's against the whole Torah, even a Yisur Rabbanan, and not just Shabbat? Because we say that Shabbat is equal to the entire Torah, and that is why in last week's Parashat Vayikra we bring the Shabbat before we bring the Mishkan, not just only to tell us that we can't build the Mishkan on Shabbat, and we learn all the milachot from the Mishkan. What's the surah on Shabbat is all learned from the Mishkan, but also to tell us, the Or HaChaim HaKadosh brings that it's going to tell us that Am Yisrael did Avodah Zarah, and Avodah Zarah is the other mitzvah that's connected to the entire Torah, that it's against the whole Torah. So when someone who does Avodah Zarah, and like we said, there's many types of Avodah Zarah today: money, women. People are slaves to their own their own gods. They've turned their own desires into gods. They're worshiping their own desires, chasing after them completely without anything to hold them back. And so, how do you fix that? You do the Shabbat, because the Shabbat is also against the whole Torah. So, how do you fix something that was against the whole Torah, and that person is as if he was sinning against the whole Torah? You have to do something that's positive against the whole Torah. That if you do something keneged kol Torah, like the Shabbat, that's positive, well then you can actually get redemption from your sins. And that's what we're going to try to do onto the Shabbat. Someone who does Shabbat, is shomer Shabbat kehilchata, is observing the Shabbat as much as they can, then it says that they forgive him of all his sins. Even if it was oved avodah zarah, but kedor enosh. Even if he was doing Avodah Zarah in the days of Enosh. Who's Enosh? He's the grandson of Adam HaRishon. And what happened in his generation? In his generation, they invented Avodah Zarah. So you say, someone who's doing Avodah Zarah today, he just learned from his fathers, who learned from his fathers, who learned from Minhag Avotam Beyadam. It just got passed on. I'm just going through the motions. But they went out and they were like, let's make something new here. No one else had ever done Avodah Zarah before, and they invented it. So it's obviously much worse what they did. So it says, even if someone was like that generation that invented Avodah Zarah, invented idol worship, do the Shabbat as much as it needs to be done, everything is forgiven. Everything is forgiven. And the flip side is true. Someone who doesn't do the Shabbat, why? Karet, nichrata nefesh hahi, kagoy de kol davar. It's everything to gain and everything to lose. So therefore, Rabotai, Bezrat Hashem, Kol Am Yisrael, we're going to do tshuva together, and we're going to do Shabbat and Pesach as well as we can.
Amen. And you're going to send it to Rachamim.